According to Freud, the concept of the primal scene is where a young child observes, constructs, or fantasises its parents in the act of sexual intercourse. Due to the apparently violent nature of the act and the child's own strongly sadistic impulses, it may see this as a scene in which both life and death are joined, like the figure of the parents themselves. Further, the child may very likely experience violent and sexual feelings towards the couple.
Just can't get it clear in my head, Jess.
In this essay, I'm going to propose that Max's so-called madness may be seen as the result of his inability to come to terms with a range of highly complex, contradictory and emotive ideas and feelings of sexuality and aggression, all of which may arise in the primal scene. I will also suggest that failure to come to terms with these thoughts and emotions can distort the development of an individual and men in particular. Further, that this failure can lead to the development of a culture based on a psychotic masculinity that attempts to control the role of women and rejects all aspects of the feminine in art, culture, politics, as well as personal identity and development. And finally, I will contend that Immortan Joe's Citadel in the fourth film of the Mad Max series is a manifestation writ large of this fear and anxiety based around the primal scene.
I'll be all right once I get it clear in my head.
Of particular interest is the fact that at the heart of this scene is the all-powerful Great Mother. A concept that individuals, men in particular, and male culture generally continue to feel threatened by, the power of the feminine, which must be curtailed, constrained and controlled. Just to emphasise that fear, let me give you a heads up about where we're going in this essay. As described by psychoanalyst Melanie Klein, during copulation, the fantasised all-powerful mother can take all of the father's body, including his penis, deep inside herself. There, the immature infant believes it could also find the mother's breasts and her milk, as well as children and human excrement.
Splendid! Angharat!
On the one hand, the child fantasises about returning to the comfort of the mother's womb, and on the other, through envy, the child wants to take possession and control of these things. And at the same time, the child fears the mother's own attack on itself. And all of this is made pretty clear in the fourth film, Fury Road. So hold on to your hats, this one covers a lot of territory.
I always say that this film is forward to the past, the past, the past, the past, the past, the past.
Miller's comment could be about the deep personal past that belongs to all of us. And the upside-down skull and crossbones in the opening seconds of the film could be a reference to birth, the beginning of life for a child, as well as death, or the end of a child's life inside the mother's womb. Okay, if you're still with me, let's recap. We've got a child, who isn't a child at all but an adult cop, watching its parents, who aren't its parents, having sex, where sex itself represents both life and death. And if you're like Max, you're still trying to get your head around this stuff when George Miller tells us that this film goes forward to the past. No wonder Max is confused. But look at these closing seconds from the end of the first film, Mad Max. I want you to consider for a moment that following the explosion behind him, symbolising his birth, whether physical or psychological, Max is now remembering or fantasising about his life in the womb before his birth. He's travelling back in his mind to the primal scene, so that effectively the film itself is a flashback. And maybe, as we pass through the gates of the halls of justice in the opening frames of Miller's film, it could be said that we are entering the body of the mother. Driving along the umbilical cord of the highway, what Freud might have described as the royal road of the unconscious, we are led to a scene that is perhaps one of the major factors causing the madness of Max Rokitansky. Okay, let's get started. Christina Wieland writes that the opening statement of a book has the same unconscious significance as the first words a patient utters for the psychoanalytic session. In this sense, we can say that the opening words of a book constitute a statement of the main unconscious theme of a book. In a way, the rest of the book is an elaboration on this opening statement. Following Wieland, I want to make the same claim for Miller's film and suggest that it applies to the rest of the films in the series as well. In the first 90 seconds of Mad Max, the director presents us with the image of a young couple in a field. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, could have called it a primal scene. As already mentioned, the scene in the field can produce a whole range of complex thoughts, feelings and fantasies for the viewer, the cop with the rifle. On the one hand, he wishes to be part of the act, as perhaps indicated by the phallic rifle, and on the other, as the rifle also suggests, he may feel threatened by the action in front of him, both feelings symbolised by the image of the boy in the middle of the road. And as Lewin and Edelheit point out, the young child's ego is still so weakly defined that the primal scene allows the child to identify with both parents simultaneously, as well as shifting identities between them. This leads to the possibility of multiple identification for the viewer with the scene in front of it, both male and female, victim and aggressor, active and passive, as well as subject and object. For example, are they fucking or fighting? Who's on top, the man or the woman? Who's in control? And is the cop just watching them out of curiosity? Does he want to join them?
March here to Big Bopper! March here to Big Bopper!
Big Bopper, got you here. What's going down?
We got a cop killer.
A cop killer?
You're kidding.
Or a killer cop about to kill this young couple? Melanie Klein claims that the sight of the primal scene can cause such trauma to the individual that it can induce a split in the mental well-being of a character.
I'll be all right once I get it clear of my head.
The signpost for Anarchy Road has already alerted us to the fact that we are in a foreign land. Anarchy, a state of chaos and disorder due to the absence or rejection of authority or other controlling systems, whether that be in society or in the mental state of a character. Given the advertising poster and the title of the film, viewers may have thought that the guy with the rifle was in fact Mad Max. Many of us who saw the fourth film in the series, Fury Road, quite readily accept that the actor Tom Hardy is Mad Max. But of course in the first three films, Max was played by another actor altogether, Mel Gibson. However, we accept these two people, or actors, as being the same character, Max Rokitansky. Along the same lines, I want to suggest that this cop may be interpreted as an alter ego, or a split in the personality of the main character, Max. The subject of multiple personalities has frequently made an appearance in film and television, from Jekyll and Hyde to United States of Tara, and Split much more recently. Splits in Max's character are many. Johnny the boy is arguably the closest character to Max himself, and in passing, so too is the war boy. And I would suggest that the cop we see here is just the first of Max's alter egos. The ambiguity and confusion surrounding the sexuality in the field, reflected here in the argument between the two cops, is mirrored and elaborated as the film unfolds, in different scenarios, split off into different characters, seen from different points of view. Think of it as a cell dividing. Because the first cop has been split, so to say, into two characters as he joins his partner in the pursuit vehicle. Then they too are duplicated by another pair of cops. And the innocent, unknowing couple we originally saw in the field are being mirrored and replaced by the outlaw couple in the car. At the heart of it all, or maybe in the head, is the central character, Max Rokitansky. Maybe Max is just fantasising it all in his head as he tools around here with his vehicle. The repetitive nature of the film's narrative is alluded to somewhat by Nico Lithurius, one of the writers of the fourth film, Fury Road, as he refers to the psychological mindset of the lead character, Max Rokitansky.
It's almost like a repetition compulsion for Max, who's repeating and repeating everything he's ever done. It all goes back to the death of his wife and child.
Just can't get it cleared up my head, Jess.
Lithurius attributes Max's breakdown to the death of his wife and child, but that comes later in the film. I'm suggesting it should be attributable to the primal scene at the very beginning of the film, all of which is played out as voices in Max's head via the police radio.
Does not like this any more than you. However, we must not compromise territorial range. But remember that only by following instructions can we hope to maintain a
Let me suggest that Max's mental trauma or breakdown might be symbolised in this image of the breakdown of his car. Stay with me, I'll return to this again later. Using Freud's conception of free association around the dreams and ideas of his adult patients, another famous psychoanalyst, Melanie Klein, was one of the first to use traditional psychoanalysis with young children, using her own play technique, as it was called. Her play technique allowed Klein to interpret the unconscious meaning behind the play and interaction of children. For example, she interpreted that children playing with cars, where they were bumping them together, could represent observing the parents in the sexual act. Here we see Max's car bumping that of another character, the Knight Rider, arguably another of Max's alter egos, and his girlfriend, somewhat replicating the idea of the young couple in the field. But in this case, Max takes the place of the cop we first saw with the rifle. According to Klein's analysis, we could interpret this as parental congress, as it's sometimes called. Further, the bumping by Max's car seems to suggest a desire on his part to participate in the act, either with the mother or the father, or both of them. Let me repeat a claim I make elsewhere, that the car itself can represent the mother.
Well, you all may think my story is more fiction than it's fact. But believe it or not, my mother did decided she'd come back as a car.
Or it could be an act of aggression towards them. The child's sadistic fantasies are vividly illustrated with the orgasmic, deathly explosion that kills Knight Rider and his girl. And they're not the only ones to meet a fiery death.
Motorbikes and leather men take me to the edge of the dream. Hold on tight, so it sure feels right. Stick to you like a tire on a licorice road.
Let me jump ahead for a minute. Point out that the same fate claims Max's mate, Goose, later in the film, following Goose's one-night stand with a nightclub singer. Okay, returning to Wieland's claim about the significance of the opening statement of a book, let me now apply it to this shot of the very first time we see Max Rokitansky. My initial impression is just how far away he is, unlike our close-up introduction to the cop with the rifle. The image of Max is more like the distant shot of the couple in the field. I've already suggested that Max's mental breakdown might be symbolised in this image of the breakdown of his car. Next comes a remarkable extreme close-up, the closest so far in what to this stage has been a series of mid-shots and long-distance shots. Max seems to be having a problem with his distributor cap, which looks rather like the breast pumps we see at Immortan Joe's Citadel in the fourth film. Let me digress for a minute to look at this scene from Michael Cimino's The Deer Hunter.
See that? Fucking A. You know, I love Mike's car. Yeah, some cars, they just sit. I mean, you never know with a car like this where the hell it's going to take you. Yeah.
Axel's humping! Mike scooped the belt!
Earlier, we saw that a car can be a symbol of the mother. So it is possible that Max Rokotansky is having a private moment here with his vehicle. Is Max humping the car? And as he reaches inside, is it the mother's breast he's thinking of? Is the scene of the young couple in the field a manifestation of a guilty thought or fantasy that's crossed Max's mind? I say guilty because the police soundtrack talks about sticking to the rules.
But remember that only by following instructions can we hope to maintain a successful harvest.
And the couple in the field of Max's mindscape are being overseen by an enforcer of the rules, a police superego symbol, a father image with a rifle. Just as the car can be seen as a symbol of the mother, Auntie Entity's Bartertown can be read in a similar way, as an architectural construction that represents the mother's body.
Look around, mister. All this I built. Up to my armpits in blood and shit.
On his arrival, Max is invited to look into the bowels of the methane-powered city, where it is suggested to him he can get a job.
You can shovel shit, can't you?
Klein writes that inside the mother's body, the immature child expects to find children, here symbolised as pigs, father himself, the little man, and the father's penis, the helmet-headed big guy, as well as excrement or human waste matter.
And they are also arrogant.
And the envious child desires the same abilities as the mother and wants to control these things. This question of power and control is central to Bartertown. Is it Master Blaster, the little father figure who resembles a baby, or at least a child, who has all the power at Bartertown? Or is it the mother figure, Auntie Entity?
Who run Bartertown?
Master Blaster runs Bartertown.
Louder!
Master Blaster runs Bartertown.
Lift embargo.
Christina Wieland writes that the infantile fantasy in relation to the mother's body has two aspects, one passive, the other active and violent. The passive fantasy literally involves the child wanting to be swallowed up, taken into the body of the mother, a return to the blissful, life-sustaining world of the womb, captured somewhat in the old religious hymn. However, it can be seen as a representation of the apparently contradictory death instinct or nirvana principle, first articulated by Freud. I think we can see this at the crack in the earth, another mother symbol, where the apparently dead Max is passively dragged by Savannah Nix in the third film, Beyond Thunderdome. But after his dreadful time in the desert, Max knows when he's on a good thing and decides that this is where he wants to stay, and gets a bit heavy about it.
Now listen good. I'm the guy that keeps Mr. Dead in his pocket. And I say we're gonna stay here.
This attitude to the mother's body is described by Melanie Klein as the femininity phase and includes the child's own envious wish to bear children, as seen with Max, somewhat to his own surprise and against his original intentions. The transformation of the child's fantasy from passive to active becomes decidedly aggressive. As Christine Whelan states, its main aim is the colonisation and destruction of the mother's body, or womb, seen clearly at Immortan Joe's Citadel in the fourth film, Fury Road.
It's gone awful quiet in there.
Get it out!
Here, Joe has manufactured a complete fascist control of everything from the women's bodies to the production of babies, milk and water, ruling over a dictatorship of the community below with a religious fervour.
I am your Redeemer! It is by my hand you will rise from the ashes of this world!
The oral obsessive greed of a frustrated infant can be read in Joe's horrific face mask. To quote Wieland, the male container or male womb created by the fascist group uses the cult of violence and militarism to prop up the flagging masculinity of its members. According to Wieland, this fantasy of colonising and controlling the mother's body both fulfills and denies the passive wish to be devoured, which we saw earlier with Max at the crack in the earth.
Slick! What's going on? Slick!
Treason! Betrayal! An imperator gone rogue!
An imperator? Who?
Furiosa! She took a lot of stuff from Immortan Joe!
What stuff?
Breeders! He's prized breeders! He wants them back!
Here at the Citadel, the mindless half-life war boys are able to lose themselves and their identity, giving themselves over to be part of a greater organisation, literally incorporated in the unconscious manifestation of the mother's body, evoking again the death instinct described by both Freud and Klein. At the same time, these immature males practice a quasi-religious death cult of violent masculine protest, a total denial of the feminine.
High-octane crazy blood filling me up. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die historic on the Fury Road.
In many ways, Immortan Joe's Citadel is a manifestation of the primal scene writ large, and of a dominant patriarchal society based on a psychotic masculinity. Understanding the implications of the primal scene points to the need for men to come to a healthy understanding and acceptance of these highly complex, contradictory and emotive ideas and feelings of sexuality and aggression, and the impact they can have on the development of an individual's personal identity. Central to this understanding is what Klein calls reparation, a coming to terms with the fantasy concept of the fearful, all-powerful Great Mother. To do so demands an acceptance of the need for integration of the feminine within the male psyche, a partnership between the masculine and the feminine. To fail to do so can lead to a psychotic fear and dreadful reaction to these feelings, primarily directed towards women, resulting in men feeling a need to control women and the broader culture generally. Finally, I'm suggesting that Max's madness is initially caused by his own sense of anxiety and mental chaos, all of which can be attributed to his traumatic fantasy of the primal scene, evident in the opening seconds of the very first film, Mad Max from 1979.